we've done studies in the past on the differences of the book of Yahusha, I'm going to try to keep bare minimum when I see a difference, just because we've already done a whole study about that. And I'll leave the link of that to our recording today. So let's see here. If people are interested. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with the Waking by Yahuwah Assembly and Yahuwah Almighty and Yahusha Messiah. As always, we have Brother Yahusha with us, Sister Milka, Brother Dennis, my mom, Sister Sharon. And so we're going to be doing, we just finished up Deuteronomy the other day, so we're going to be starting, let's see, today would be, the book of Yahusha, chapter 1 to 3, so we're going to be starting that. And like I said, those of you that are on the live right now, that are hearing this, that probably heard my little introduction as we were going live. We're not going to focus too much on the differences because we've already done a study, actual recording on the differences in the book of Joshua and the book of Yahusha. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll leave you guys a link. We will not waste too much expounding in time on the differences just because we've already done that. We dedicated a full study to that. So I'm sorry, but we're not going to waste too much time on that today. If you guys are interested, you guys can always click on that study, watch it for yourselves, and you'll see all the difference between the LXX, the Septuagint, and the Masoretic text, and all of that. So I really recommend, if you guys are interested for that, definitely check that one out. So let's see here. All right, so I'm going to start us off here in chapter 1. Let me just get the shared screen going. Just see here. Okay, it's already there. It's already on it. Okay. Let's see, let me go out. I know I'm going to have to open a new window. My Sword for Android. Okay. Been getting so many different My Sword updates recently. I don't know why they're doing so many updates. I guess there's bugs they had to fix or something. Book of Yahusha, chapter 1. So what you reading right now, Mom?
I'm right where we're going to start.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. So chapter 1. And it came to pass after the death of Masha that Yahuwah spoke to Yahusha, son of Nun, the minister of Masha, saying, Masha, my servant, is dead. Now then arise, go over the Jordan, you and all this people, into the land which I give them. Every spot on which you shall tread, I will give it to you, as I said to Masha. The wilderness and the Antilibus, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, as far as the extremity of the sea, your coast shall be from the setting of the sun. Interesting. So that identifies the east as the setting of the sun. Not a man shall stand against you all the days of your life, and as I was with Masha, so I will be with you. And I will not fail you or neglect you. Excuse me. Be strong and make yourself like a man, for you shall divide the land to this people, which I swear to give to your fathers. Be strong, therefore, and make yourself like a man to observe and do as Masha, my servant, commanded you. You shall not turn, therefore, from the right hand or to the left, that you may be wise in whatsoever you may do. And the book of this law shall not depart from out of your mouth, and you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may know how to do all things that are written.
Then shall you prosper and make your ways prosperous. Then shall you be wise. Lo, I have commanded you, be strong, courageous, be not cowardly, nor fearful. For Yahuwah, your Elohim, is with you in all the places where you go. And Yahusha commanded the scribes of the people, saying, go in the midst of the camp of the people and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yet 3 days, and you shall go over this Jordan, enter in to take possession of the land which Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers gives to you. Now, this is an important verse here because it shows that it's good to have faith and trust, but what does he tell them to do? He tells them to prepare.
Yeah, that's right.
So we can kind of spiritualize this in a way to kind of, that's how our walk should be. We shouldn't just only depend on Yahuwah. We need to be meeting him halfway and be doing the right thing. You know, what I mean by that is if you know that, let's just put it in today's terms, right? We know that this economy is going to crash at some point. You might want to start stocking up on food if you know the economy is going to crash at some point in the next couple of years. You don't want to just sit and wait and be like, well, I'm trusting on Yahuwah. Yeah, we're to trust on him, but we're also not to be idle and not to just let things hit the fan. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you're supposed to prepare. Did Noah just wait for the flood, or he prepared for the flood? So, I mean, there's tons of examples like that. Did Yusuf, you know, did his brothers just wait for the famine? I'm pretty sure they were trying their best to have provisions before the famine happened. So you see that, you know, even with the story of Yusuf in Egypt, you know, Pharaoh told all of Egypt's like, listen, we got to make provisions because this famine's happening. So anyway, so he said, and to Reuben and Gad and to all the half tribe of Manasseh, Yahusha said, remember the word which Moshe, the servant of Yahuwah, commanded you, saying, Yahuwah your Elohim has caused you to rest and has given you the land. Let your wives and your children, your cattle dwell in the land which he has given you. You shall go over well armed before your brothers, every one of you who is strong, and you shall fight on their side, until Yahuwah your Elohim shall have given your brothers rest, as also to you, and they also shall have inherited the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives them. Then you shall depart, each one to his inheritance, which Moshe gave you beyond the Jordan eastward. And they answered Yahusha and said, we will do all the things which you commanded us. We will go to every place where you shall send us. Whereinsoever we hearken to Moshe, we will hearken to you. Only let Yahuwah our Elohim be with you as he was with Moshe. And whosoever shall disobey you, and whosoever shall not hearken to your words as you shall command him, let him die, but you be strong and courageous. So that's pretty strong there. Whoever disobeys Yahusha will die. Now, I wonder if this was also spoken to him as a way of being a type of Yahusha the Messiah. I believe Yahusha, son of Nun, was like a type of Messiah. He was a type of what the Messiah would be, character-wise and all that. I find it interesting, this version calls him the minister of Masha, so he ministered to Masha. That's kind of interesting to me, an interesting parallel, because you have Yahusha, who's supposed to be our high priest, right? So just find that interesting. I don't think your version, Mom, says minister in verse 1.
No, what's interesting is what it says in the Septuagint.
Yeah. What verse were you looking at? Because I could probably find it for you. Since I already have it on my screen here, I could probably find it for you. Okay. If you know the exact verse you're looking for.
Well, I'm looking for the same verse that says servant or whatever it says that you would just say.
Minister.
Minister. Okay.
Verse 1.
Oh, that's
It came to pass after the death of Masha that Yahuwah spoke to Yahusha, son of Nun, the minister of Masha.
assistant is what.
Yeah.
Says.
Yeah. Well, the translator has it as attendant, but you can probably translate it multiple ways.
Okay.
Yeah. It depends on the translator, Mom, because the Septuagint's in Greek. So
Right.
whatever English translator translates it,
Right.
what's going to happen is they're going to pick whatever English word they think is best to fit that Greek word. That's what's actually going on. So that's why you have attendant or minister. Yeah, so the ABP will say aid or helper. Yeah, it depends. Huh. Interesting. This Greek word actually definitely shows he was a type of Messiah. It says that this word can also mean for imitation or sketch. So think about it, right? What did Masha tell them before he chose Yahusha as his successor? He said, a prophet like unto me.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it, right? Partially being fulfilled by Yahusha, son of Nun, is the prophet like unto him, who is a foreshadow of who? Yahusha the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I'm saying there? That actual Greek word can mean imitation, where it says attendant. Pretty interesting, in my opinion. And how Paul, even in the New Testament, he says, imitate me, right? I imitate Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of interesting.
I think verse 8, it's interesting. All the people with one consent answered and said, all that Yahuwah has said we will do, and we will be obedient. You have that same hold on. That's verse 8 in Exodus. That's the cross reference actually I was looking at. But in verse 16, you have thereupon they answered and said to Yahusha, all that you command we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. And then in Exodus 1 verse 8, you have the people saying the exact same thing to Masha, except they don't actually do it. They say all that is said we will obey, and then they didn't obey. But here you have the same thing being said, and these are the people that actually fulfill that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 It seems as if Israel's biggest problem was they always felt like they needed a leader to have to push them into the right path. When I look at scripture and I look at the history of Yahuwah's people, what's the biggest problem? Oh, there was never a Masha in that generation, so they became apostate. There was never a Yahusha son of Nun in later generations, so they became apostate. It seems like they always need someone to have to force them onto the right path, which is a problem.
Even when they had someone, though, they had Masha, and they perished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest problem is sometimes we get into that mentality of trusting on man rather than Yahuwah, and that we need a man to put us on the right path. And, even when that happens, like you said, they would fail even when that happens. So the scriptures kind of show you what happens when you depend on man instead of Yahuwah. When your faith is in man instead of Yahuwah, it's a counterfeit faith, and it doesn't last. Like, you can only for so long follow your pastor. You can only for so long follow your rabbi until you fall.
Even Yahusha said, if they wouldn't listen to Moshe, they wouldn't listen to Yahusha standing there in front of them.
Yeah. They wouldn't be convinced as someone rose from the dead. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically saying, yeah. And I feel like that's a message to those that later on would like try to, basically throw away the Torah. Because in a way, he's saying that even if someone was to resurrect, if you don't believe in his writings, you can't believe in mine. You can't believe in me. So, and we know there's a religion today that literally does that. They claim a Messiah that rose from the dead. They claim this guy JC, but they don't believe in the law of Moses. And so, that's another clue that something's going on, that you're part of another Basora and another message, when the true Messiah, Yahusha, said, if you don't believe in the Torah, they wouldn't be convinced if I rose from the dead. So that's just something to think about. So,
verse 8, the book of the Torah. I think this is a good verse to point out to people that think that the Torah is done away with and you don't have to keep it, especially those that would say that the Torah was too hard and so that's why we couldn't keep it and Yahusha kept it for us. So the book of the Torah must never be out of your mouth. You must study it day and night, that you may know how to do all that is written. Then shall you be prospered, and you will make your ways prosperous, and then shall you have a tube understanding. But it says that you may know how to do all that's written. Either Yahuwah is being facetious there, and he's saying, study this so that you can do this all, knowing that they really can't, or he's being literal and it's serious. But if they couldn't keep it, then this verse is, what do you do with this verse?
Also, what's important to understand too is Yahuwah doesn't, even though like someone could take that verse to extreme literal, Yahuwah doesn't expect you to not fail. So I don't want people misunderstanding what we're saying. We are he demands us to do our best to keep the whole law, but it's not like you're not going to mess up. This does not exclude his favor. His favor has already been there, and that's another lie of the church. Another lie of the church, they take that one verse from Romans and make it look like Yahusha introduced mercy supposedly in the New Testament, that he was the first person to introduce mercy. Yahuwah had mercy all throughout the Tanakh. Even with this, there's mercy. Because I can show you guys in Deuteronomy, I'll show you guys that by desiring to be obedient to Yahuwah, he actually gives you mercy only to those that want to keep his law. I'll show you what I'm talking about. In Deuteronomy 6:25, it says, and the Masoretic text screws this up, they change it to righteousness, as if they would have righteousness of themselves. It says here, there shall be mercy to us if conditional, if we take heed to keep all these commandments before Yahuwah our Eluah, as he has commanded us. So basically meaning that obedience to the law does not exclude mercy. So he doesn't expect you not to fail. You're going to fail. It's almost inevitable. But there's mercy to those that desire to obey him. That's the full picture there. So as Brother Yahusha was talking about in Joshua 1:18, I think this is where Christianity screws the pooch on it, is they throw the baby out with the bathwater. Obedience does not exclude mercy. Somehow they get that with Paul's letters, but Paul's never saying that. He's never saying either or. Okay? You're desiring to obey him by default because you desire to obey the Torah. He's going to give you mercy if you fall. I don't know what's so hard about that. That's simple.
Mercy increases as obedience increases.
So like the more, and I don't like using this Christian term, but I'm going to use it anyway. Oh well, I know some people will be mad at me using this term. Christians out there might be familiar with this term sanctification. Okay, the more you become sanctified or set apart, okay,
there's going to be more mercy for you messing up.
Mhm.
But if you're not growing in sanctification, he's not going to give you as much mercy. Why? Because you're taking advantage of his mercy. It's as simple as that. So Joshua 1:18 does not exclude what Romans 5 says, okay? It does not exclude that, okay? Favor is part of this, but at the same time, we can go to Exodus 20, where it says on the flip side, he's not going to give mercy to those that hate him. And what does he define as those that hate him? Those that don't keep his commandments. So what we have to understand is love, or agape, if you want to use the Greek word agape in the Father's eyes, is obeying him. It's an action. Love's the action word in Hebrew.
Yeah.
It's not a feeling. It's not emotion. It's action.
That's right.
So that's what we have to do. We have to take our emotions out of this, and we have to unlearn what the church has taught us, that love's emotion. No. True love's not an emotion. You can with all your emotion truly believe you love him, and you can be hating him by your works.
That's right.
And that's scriptural. So this is something we need to understand. Loving him is obeying him. It's very simple.
Mhm.
If you do the opposite, you're not loving him. And he says he's not going to give mercy to those that don't love him. He even says, I give mercy to whom I will give mercy to. He doesn't, and that's a whole nother topic, but Yahuwah is not entitled to give the whole world mercy. So that's a whole nother topic in of itself. So or I should say, the world is not entitled to his mercy. Is what I meant to say. Okay. All right. So that was a good verse that Brother Yahusha brought up, though. That was a good verse. I just want to make sure everyone is not misunderstanding what we're saying here. Because obviously, yeah, he did expect Israel to keep the law fully. And we're the only reason that we fall is really the flesh. That's really what it is. It's not too hard. It's just your flesh gets in the way. Is really what it is. And anyone that says to me, "Oh, the law is too hard, we can't keep the law," that's the flesh talking. That's not even your mind speaking anymore. That's the flesh. Romans says the flesh is at enmity with Torah. So if you have a mindset of it's too hard, that's your flesh talking. And the flesh is the only thing that's in the way. If we go back to the garden and the fall never happened, Adam and Kua would have easily kept the law without fail. Everything that's in the law. What causes us to stumble is our own flesh. And sometimes what causes us to stumble too is the enemy wants to sow things in our mind to cause us to sin. So, without the fall of mankind, that doesn't happen. But anyway, so Mom, would you like to read chapter 2?
Sure. Then Yahusha, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim, Shittim being the present-day island of Cyprus. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab: bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, the men left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fjords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that Yahuwah has given this land to you, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how Yahuwah dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Mitzrayim, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts sank, and everyone's courage failed because of you, for Yahuwah your Elohim is almighty in heaven above and on the earth below. Now then, please swear to me by Yahuwah that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when Yahuwah gives us the land. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. Now she had said to them, go to the hills, so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there 3 days until they return, and then go on their way. The men said to her, this oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless when we enter the land, you have tied this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house. If anyone goes outside your house into the street, his blood will be on his own head. We will not be responsible. As for anyone who is in the house with you, his blood will be on your head. His blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on him. But if you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear. Agreed, she replied. Let it be as you say. So she sent them away, and they departed. And she tied the scarlet cord in the window. When they left, they went into the hills and stayed there 3 days, until the pursuers had searched all along the road and returned without finding them. Then the two men started back. They went down out of the hills, forded the river, and came to Yahusha, son of Nun, and told him everything that had happened to them. They said to Yahusha, Yahuwah has surely given the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us. Three times already we've seen 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Holy Spirit. What does verse 11 in yours say? I'm just curious if it has the phrase earth beneath. In verse 11 of Joshua.
Okay.
2:11.
When we heard of it, our hearts sank, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For Yahuwah, your Elohim, is, I said almighty as I was reading it.
No, but like the more important part, does it say and on earth beneath in that verse?
Yes, below. Yes, and on
Okay.
the earth below.
Okay. Because sometimes in the Masoretic they take out the phrase and on earth beneath, so I'm just curious. Which, by the way, I think is a oneness connection. A lot of people don't catch this, but what does it say in Philippians? It says that everyone on earth, under the earth, will what? Bow their knee. So a lot of people don't catch that. oneness connection there in Philippians 2:10, which is also first iterated, I think, in Isaiah, if I'm not mistaken, where Yahuwah says, everyone will bow to me. Also, what I found interesting, verse 10 in the Septuagint has the compound name of Yahuwah Elohim or Yahuwah Elua there, which I don't believe the Masoretic does. But the reason that's important for those that are not familiar with our studies about Yahusha in the Tanakh, when you see Yahuwah and Elohim together as a compound name, like in your English Bibles, that would be all capitals Lord and then G-O-D together. That is usually a title, not a title, but a compound name that indicates, this is talking about the same person as Yahuwah Sabayot or Yahuwah of armies, Yahuwah of hosts. So in the Septuagint it says, for we have heard that Yahuwah Elua dried up the Red Sea before you when you came out of the land of Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. From my studying and what I truly believe, when it has that title Elohim or Elua attached to the Tetragrammaton as a compound name like that, that is by default referencing to Yahusha, pre-incarnate. I know a lot of people say, Doug, how can you prove it? I'm going to give you guys a link to a study to prove it. We don't have time to go through all the times you see that compound name referencing to Yahusha before he took on flesh in the Tanakh, but it's almost as many times as you will see Malak Yahuwah. It's by default referencing the Ben. It's referencing him before he took on flesh. And even the authors of the Targums would agree that Elua, Yahuwah Elua, this compound name you see on the screen, also in the Greek Septuagint, that would be Kurios and Theos together as one name. That is almost like another name for Malak Yahuwah, the word of Yahuwah, or actually, Brother Yahusha corrected me recently. There is no of in the Hebrew or Greek, so it'd be messenger Yahuwah. So whenever you see in scripture the messenger Yahuwah did this, that's Yahuwah Elua. That is Debar Yahuwah. And I believe this is another compound name that Yahusha is known by in the Tanakh. So if you guys want to check that out, I don't expect you guys just to believe me for it. You can check it out for yourself. I'll leave a link to that. The study is called The Word of Yahuwah. Yahuwah Elua equals the Word of Yahuwah. So you guys can test that for yourselves if you would like to. I might actually change the title to Word Yahuwah or Debar Yahuwah. So I might actually change the title of that video, since the English word of is not actually in the text. And when we heard it, we were amazed in our heart, and there was no longer any spirit in any of us because of you. For Yahuwah, your Elua in heaven above, earth beneath, and we already talked about that. Again, verse 12, Yahuwah Elua in the Septuagint. So again, and now swear to me by Yahuwah Elua. So he is actually saying, make a vow. Let us make a covenant or a vow by Yahuwah Elua. Since I deal mercifully with you, so do you also deal mercifully with the house of my father. Now, this is a big deal. If I'm right, and this is talking about Messiah pre-incarnate, then the Messiah pre-incarnate cannot be a separate person from the Father. Remember how, I think it's in Genesis, anyone wants to help me out here, where Yahuwah says he swore by himself because there's no one higher. he swore by himself to Abraham. He swore by his name to Abraham because there was no one higher to swear by. Maybe I'm thinking about the Brit Hadashah when Paul talks about it. But basically, it's the concept of you can't swear. When they're swearing by the Father's name, there's no other name greater to swear by. So, to me, I find that interesting. So, and again, the Masoretic here would just have Yahuwah there, I believe. So, just check this out here real quick. Swear unto me, yeah. So the Masoretic leaves the title Elu or Elohim completely out of the text in those two verses, in verse 12 and verse 11. So, yeah. All right. All that they have and shall deliver our lives from death. Now, what I also liked about this chapter was this shows that that for Yahuwah's purpose, he can give you mercy by to lie. I don't believe this chapter would be giving people the right, to lie to someone, and it's not sin, but at the same time, this is what I would call an extreme situation where what is the greater purpose? Yahuwah's purpose to give his people their inheritance, or worried about lying. Rahab, not even being a believer, right? She realizes, okay, well, this might seem wrong for me to lie, but if I don't lie, we're going to have the wrath of Yahuwah on us because we're in the way of him giving his inheritance to his people. So that's the way I look at it, is that sometimes you have to look at things at what is the greater purpose. And I'll give you another example, right? It's probably not the best thing to have Adam and Kua have to have their children marry one another to procreate, but there was no other way physically. They were the only human family. So how do you fill the earth? Yahuwah commanded that specific family to procreate and fill the earth. So how do you do that? You have to have your children marry one another. You have to have Seth marry his sister. You have to have Cain marry his sister.
You know what's interesting about that? I'm just thinking here, let things go. He protected them in doing that back then. Today, we have many cases where if people did that and had children, there's diseases now. These kids will be born blind.
And I wonder though if I would agree with you that it's protection, but I would wonder if after Genesis 6, there's a genome problem, and that causes a lot of that. I kind of wonder, because even scientists today, Mom, that are not believers in the Bible, they admit that at that specific time period, whenever, whatever 1900 BC, whenever it was, that when that Genesis 6 experiment happened, our genome changed. Even those of us that are not Nephilim, our genome was altered, even slightly. A full-on human now has altered DNA from a perfect creation of Yahuwah. You see what I'm saying? So our genome has changed a lot since Adam and Kua, and we need to understand that. So people, look at it like, oh, that's a contradictory, he allowed it, then didn't allow it. No, first of all, you have to understand genetics, number one. Number two, you need to understand that Adam and Kua were direct creations of Yahuwah. Their genome was perfect. Hence, them having children procreate is not like today.
True, I see. Yeah.
So we also have to understand the Genesis 6 experiment, why it's paramount to understand the true interpretation of Genesis 6, because that reflects the whole rest of the Tanakh in different places. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to understand other things. You're not going to understand the conquest of Canaan. You're not going to understand it. It's paramount to understand what Genesis 6:4 is really saying. So that there was a genetic issue after Genesis 6. Hence why later in the law of Moses, King
commit incest anymore. You got a genome problem from Genesis 6 further on. So, hence why Yahuwah would say, he has Abraham even after Genesis 6 tell him, like, listen, have your sons marry within your family, maybe not direct sisters, but Abraham's seed for a little bit before the law of Moses came had to marry within their lineage. Because if they don't, they're going to be marrying people that have corrupted genetics. So that's another thing we need to understand too, is that for a time, Yahuwah allowed even indirect, second, third cousin incest to preserve the seed of Abraham genetically so that it doesn't get altered by these Canaanite tribes and the Amorites, the Anakim, the Hittites, all of them were in the land. So you have to understand too, there was very few options until the law of Moses comes, and you have a lot more options. You have now the Midianites are near them, and Midianites, before Numbers, Midianites were not, off limits to intermarry with. Masha had a Midianite wife, if I'm not mistaken, because Zipporah would have been a Midianite. So a lot of things changed between, Genesis 3 and Exodus 20. So that's what you have to understand historically too. So I personally believe by the time you get to the law of Moses, our human genome is so screwed up at that point that, it would be very dangerous to have incest, like to still be having your children have to commit incest. And at that point, you really don't need it anymore either, because you got the whole earth has been populated. The whole earth, the whole purpose of him allowing incest in the beginning was to fill the earth. He commanded Adam and Kua to fill the earth. So, there's multiple reasons that you can think of. So anyway, hopefully I didn't give you guys too much. Hopefully that explanation makes sense, because I know some people get confused with that. And it, to the world, that can seem like a contradiction. It's like, why in one aspect, Yahuwah is okay with something, and then in another aspect, he considers it sin later on. So just to try to explain why it's there's a huge difference to back in the origin of the world versus now. You got humanity's genome is all screwed up to a certain extent. And even further on, if you look at today, our genetics are very messed up today. We've been eating genetically modified food for so long. We've been so deformities, there could be many variables to the deformities and stuff like that. And I believe genetics has a big deal on that our genome has been changed so much that it would be dangerous to be committing incest. And that's probably why Yahuwah said no. I mean, there's other theories out there that supposedly the nations were doing rituals with it and stuff like that, and that's why it became evil to Yahuwah. Now, I don't have any proof of that, so I'm not going to say that's what I believe caused him to change his mind. I personally just think that, for whatever reason, Yahuwah looked at it as evil at that point in time. So, I'm not going to question his mind. His mind is higher than our minds. So, but anyway.
As sin increased, the law increased. Paul talks about this.
Yeah. So
I think that Shittim. So in Joshua, you have Yashral exiting the wilderness and getting ready to enter into the promised land, and that word Shittim, it's an interesting word. It means it's plural for acacia trees, or acacia tree I guess would be Shittah. Shittim or Shittim would be the plural. But acacia woods or acacia trees apparently have really big thorns, strong says scourging thorns, and then the AHLB, the ancient Hebrew, it says this would be in verse 1. But the AHLB, it says like whips. So it's interesting. Scourging thorns or whips. You have Yahusha, son of Nun, sent them out of Shittim to go and spy out the land. So you almost get this picture of they're being sent out of the place of being scourged. They're being sent out of the place of their discipline to spy out the promised land. So I thought that was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. I
Who
remember
he doesn't make a mistake on words that he chooses.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like Yahuwah sometimes uses certain names and words almost to give a hint as into a bigger meaning of or purpose of certain things. And that could be one of them right there.
Also, I thought it was interesting. I mean, we don't really get a full detail. Like it gives us like the bare minimum. But you had these two men going into the house of a harlot, and I definitely don't think that they were going to sleep with a prostitute.
No.
You know, if that were the case, I think that Yahuwah's judgment would have fell upon them.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because at this point the Torah has already been given. Although I don't know, because we do see people sleeping with prostitutes earlier on, and I'm not sure if there's I don't know. I know there's obviously I'm not advocating for sleeping with a prostitute in any way, shape, or form, because we see that's what Yashar did. Yashar went and whored around. Now that being said, I know other people have given. There's been people in this walk that have said that there's not anything wrong with it because there's no specific Torah that says not to sleep with a prostitute. So,
Yeah.
but I just think it's. I wonder why they were in the house of a prostitute.
I think they were seeking refuge. If I was to look at the whole story, they basically they sent spies also to spy out the land. Probably what happened was you got only two men, and you got a whole city that they're about to make war with. So if they get caught, they're dead. You know, if you understand war a little bit, it makes sense. To basically like put it in layman's terms in modern times, it would be like America's fighting another nation, right? They're sent to spy out the land of another nation to get an advantage, right? They can't get caught. They
I
get
wonder
caught.
if yeah, no, I definitely agree, and to that point, I wonder if in back then, like just like now, prostitutes were like the scum of that city. You know, the scum of and so they went to the lowest of the low, someone that the city didn't care for, and she probably didn't care for the city. You know.
Yeah, I would agree. I think even in first century Israel, it was like that as well. You had basically, they would treat any harlot in Israel or prostitute like as like the lowest of that hierarchy of the people. Like they would not care about them. You know, um, a lot of the times they were looking for any reason to stone a lot of the harlots, and not even give them mercy. I think that's possibly why Yahusha did what he did with the adulterous woman thing. I think he was possibly showing her mercy because Yashrael at that time, they were, going by the letter of the law, but not the heart of the law. They were looking to stone harlots and prostitutes, even if the man wasn't present, they were stoning them. I think a lot of what was going on with that, the reason Yahusha did what he did with her was to kind of almost like judgment on the Pharisees and them, and being like, yeah, you guys are so worried about the letter of the law, but you forget the heart of the law.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see that happening with the nations too. If Israel was guilty of it at a certain point, I could see the nations treating harlots extremely horrible to the point where they're outcasts. Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff about this. It's interesting to note Rahab also becomes part of Yashrael later on. I can also look at the purpose of Yahuwah sending them into her home was the purpose for her to be saved later on. And it could have also been a witnessing opportunity. So a lot of people will say, they'll try to rationalize and say, well, see, Yahuwah sent them to witness to her. Why can't we go to a strip club? And I'm like, come on.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, come on, like you're that's like apples and oranges, dude. Come on.
Okay.
19
You should go into a satanic synagogue or whatever, satanic church or whatever you want to call it, while they're having their satanic offerings and witness to them while in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So that's I can see people taking this story and really twisting it, and especially in Christianity, I see them using stories like this and that going to the house of Matthew and seeing them really twist it to the point where we should be going anywhere and we shouldn't exclude from going to anyone, and they get into this weird idea of, and again, like, I have yet to see a scripture that actually says Yahusha was a companion of sinners. I know that's a thing in the church. They call him that, but there's nowhere in scripture that says that. He didn't go to Matthew's house to be his companion. He went there to witness to him. He went to the sick because they needed a doctor. What does he mean by that spiritually? He means that they're spiritually sick. They're dead inside. He went to make them whole.
And I think the houses that he sat in, the houses that he ate at, these were houses where they invited him so that he could speak. They wanted to hear the message. He didn't just go to any house. He did go and sit at the house of sinners, but as far as I understand, these are houses that, because you don't just go into somebody's house. Someone has to invite you into their house. So these people had to have invited him, asked him to speak, so they wanted to hear. They were hungry.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. Yeah, he was invited into Matthew's home. He was invited to most homes that he went to. Nowadays, the whole door-to-door thing has kind of corrupted that concept and kind of got into a place where they just randomly go to people's homes uninvited. You see that with certain circs out there. They I would say the Mormons are big on that. Jehovah's Witnesses are big on that. They misunderstand the whole door-to-door concept. They take that one verse and get it to almost like a universalized understanding of door-to-door witnessing, and they just go to everyone's random door, and doesn't even matter if people are eating a dinner. They'll go door to door, and barge in on people. I've never been a fan of that, just personally, my personal view on that. I think it's very rude.
Well, like, to that, like, I've had people that have come to come to the door, and I mean, provided that you're, you know, honestly, I think those are good witnessing opportunities if they come to your door. Because I had some a group of people. I would imagine they were in like a drug rehab, like something like Victory Outreach or Restoration Ministries, like a drug ministry. But I've had people come to the door one time, well, multiple times, but this one in particular that comes to mind. And it was about to be Shabbat, maybe about 2 hours before Shabbat. And I was making dinner, and they came to the door, and because it was almost Shabbat, and because I was busy doing me, I guess, I'm preparing for Shabbat. I didn't even take the time to speak to them. I just said, I'm not interested. But granted, I understand that Yahuwah has to be the one initiating everything, but I don't even know if that was him because I didn't even take the time. That I could have dropped a seed right there. But just a thought: if someone comes to your door, especially, um, uh, I think those are good opportunities. If they're coming to witness to you, why not witness to them, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I personally have never actually had that opportunity. I would say the closest I had was just seeing them one time going around a complex that we lived at, and kind of me and Darnell back in the day, we were keeping Shabbat together one Shabbat, and me and him and Milo decided to kind of go on a crusade to stop them from deceiving people. Basically, we caught them. We caught them going around the complex. And we're like, oh, okay, we see what they're trying to do. Hand out their stupid little flyers of the Book of Mormon. Okay, so we kind of intercepted them, and we are like, oh yeah, hey, you want to talk? So we kind of talked to them, and Darnell said the funniest thing, man, and it's so true. It's like because they were talking, oh, we're we get that his original name wasn't Jesus, but we really don't care too much.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, really? He's like, okay. It's like, so, and these two were girls. So he's like, would you care if your husband, when you guys are being intimate, use another name for you? And they kind of, they stopped talking at that point. Because they got what he's saying. It's like, so would you care if your husband calls you by another woman's name? Would that make you angry? People don't understand when they say Yahuwah's name doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Worship is intimacy. It's not physical intimacy, but it is intimacy to Yahuwah. Worshiping him is your special one-on-one time that you're giving praise to him.
Yeah.
That was the point he was trying to make, which he's 110% right on that point. He had a great point on that. So.
I had some Jehovah Witnesses come by here. This was years ago, and I invited them in and talked to them. I did, and I gave them scripture, and they were fascinated by it.
Crazy.
And they actually, their head honcho from California was coming over here, and they wanted him to come over here and talk to me.
Wow.
And I did. That was interesting.
Yeah. No, we asked them a lot of questions that day. The Jehovah Witnesses, not the Jehovah Witnesses, but the Mormons that were the certain questions were not getting answered. Like like they tried to give us a book of Mormon that had all these new prophets like Nephi and stuff like that. I was like, oh, can you show us where the scriptures talk about these prophets? These so-called Israelites like Nephi and all them. Okay, can you show us where that is? Oh, okay. So yeah, not to go on a whole rabbit trail. I would like to do a expose on certain religions like that, a series like that with our fellowship, just to give people a warning about certain, because even though Christianity, I'm fully convinced that it's a heresy, there's even stronger heresies within Christianity that are offset cult groups that you need to be aware of, like the Jehovah Witnesses, the Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists are another one of them. Even though they're a lot more subtle with their cult-like beliefs. You really
Who's
don't
the
really.
brother that came out of Mormonism? He was
Yeah,
an
Will.
ex-witch.
Yeah, Will
Bill
Schnoblin.
Schneeblen. There you go.
Yeah, Will Schneeblen or Schnoblin, however you pronounce his name.
He's got a lot of really good material on witnessing to Mormons on his website that would be a really good
Yeah,
like template
yeah,
to use.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
too, like, um even if they don't receive, you know, um the more that you do it, the more that you know how to navigate, the more that you know what their response is going to be, so you know how to respond a little bit better the next time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I would use his template more than the experience that we did that day in that complex. I personally would use his approach a little bit better because he goes straight into doctrine in his approach. He goes straight into, okay, but what type of Messiah do they serve? Um, and what type of Messiah do you serve? You serve a Messiah that you believe, the Messiah you believe in says that, he's not the son of the creator. They don't believe Yahusha is the son of Yahuwah. They believe Yahusha is just another exalted human that became a god, just like they believe Yahuwah is that as well. When you actually go into their belief system, it's good to know their belief system before witnessing to one, because they themselves don't know what they believe, because it's almost like Freemasonry. Okay, you got these lower level people that don't know what the heck they believe. They're just part of this club, part of this group, fraternity, for lack of a better word. They don't know what the heck they really believe, what the theology is really being taught. In the higher ups of Mormonism, they teach that Yahusha is just a really righteous human Messiah that became a god. Apotheosis is what is taught, and so that alone shows you that the Yahusha they believe in is another Yahusha. Um, just to put it in plain, you know. So I think the hardest thing is to show a Mormon or Jehovah Witness that the Yahusha they've been taught or proclaimed to them is not the Yahusha of the Brit Hadashah, and to show them that doctrinally they've 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 accepted another Messiah and another Basora. Um, and so I think moving forward, if whoever gave me the opportunity, I would have to show them that straight from the Bible. I would have to somehow approach them and, like, all right, let's put that book of yours to the side and let's actually read with what you say you believe in the Bible, right? Okay, let's go to the Bible. Let's go to the Bible and let's test the good news that you've been given and see if this is the good news that Paul proclaimed and the good news that the apostles proclaimed. And I would even start with First Thessalonians 5, where it says you need to test all things. You can't just believe it just because your pastor told you this is the right good news. You need to test it. I would start them with that, and then I would go through the just New Testament. You don't even have to go to the Tanakh. Just showing the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant scriptures, how the Messiah they've been given does not match Yahusha at all. Like I said, if you research their religion believes he's not the son of the creator. They don't believe he's co-creator. They don't believe I don't know if they even believe he's pre-existent. I would have to go back into their beliefs, but they have a lot of doctrinal issues. They believe that we our spirits are eternal. So they believe in the whole, what is that false Greek mythology doctrine? They believe in the eternity of the soul. They believe that, we were originally spirit babies and Yahuwah had a heavenly wife up there that he procreated our spirits with. I mean, this is the weird doctrines they believe in. This is what you got to kind of go to them about is like, all right, can you show me like what you guys, your core beliefs in the creation of the world, who the Messiah is, the pre-existence of the Messiah. Like, you really kind of have to press them a little bit. I'd be like, okay, can you show me like what you believe in the Bible, where you're getting this from? And a lot of them don't know it because a lot of these missionaries, the way they send them out is so evil. They send them out. They don't even equip them on anything. They just, it's very secretive. They don't let the whole congregation know what they really believe. It's very, very much like Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's very weird. It's like if you got to be in the know to know what they really believe. And William Schnoebelen he was in there. He was part of the club. He originally was part of that club, as the old saying goes. So he knew what they actually believed. And I mean, you guys can check it for yourself. There's old banned cartoons on YouTube about exposing their beliefs. None of their beliefs are biblical. That religion has, and again, that's why when the topic comes like, Doug, do you think there's more scripture out there? There's all these new books coming from the Dead Sea Scrolls. I always point to this example of Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith claimed he found these golden tablets that were the original word. And then when he translates or gets help translating his Bible, how off his Bible is. And how much, stuff in his Bible is very, ethnic supremacy based, Eurocentric based. I believe the whole doctrine of Eurocentric seed of Israel comes from Joseph Smith, personally. That's a whole nother topic, but the whole idea that, Israel is Britain and this and that, I believe that all goes back to Joseph Smith because he made these books of Nephi that proclaim that the Israelites were white and that all black people are children of Cain and seed of Cain and all that nonsense. So that's what you got to understand is just because someone claims there's more scripture out there, you got to test things because there's a lot of heretical stuff out there. So, just because someone says, oh, I found these books in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that doesn't really mean much. When Joseph Smith, if he did find gold tablets, if they contained what he translated it as, that's not scripture. That's some heretical doctrines of devils. So anyway, but not to go on a whole rabbit trail, but I just kind of want to explain that for people that are viewing and listening. Like, this is what you're going to be dealing with the Mormons. A lot of their beliefs are not in the Bible. So you have to go right to the Bible with them. Be like, okay, prove to me what you believe with the Bible. I don't care about your little Mormon book. Okay. I care about the Father's word, the Most High's word. I don't care about some man that, claimed he had a secret revelation. You could even start with Galatians. And I would start with Galatians, I think it's 1:8 or 1:9. It says, even if an angel gives you another message. Paul said this for a reason. He prophesied that for a reason. Mm-hmm. I believe Paul was like a type of prophet. Oh, yeah. When you see some of what he says and predicts, it's like all's happened like that he's predicted in his letters. He predicted that wolves would come in, fulfilled. He predicted that, or he didn't really predict, I should take that back. He didn't really predict in Galatians. It wasn't like he was prophesying, but he was saying, he was giving us a fair warning that inadvertently became almost like a prophecy because you have heretical groups within Christianity that have new messages based on an angel. You have Islam based on an angel. So, Paul
Well,
gave us a whole,
I would definitely agree with the first thing that you said. It was definitely a prophecy because he wasn't even warning. He said, "I know that after I'm gone, they will, not that they might." You're right.
yeah. So it's almost like Paul was like maybe in the office of a prophet, maybe not exactly, claiming himself to be a prophet, but he was definitely prophesying in part. He was like giving certain things that were prophecy, and there are certain prophecies he actually gave that are verbatim prophecies, like in Second Thessalonians, he quotes from Daniel's prophecy but expounds it. He says, he will sit in the temple of Yahuwah, claiming himself to be Yahuwah. Technically, Daniel doesn't ever say that, but what Paul is doing, he's expounding on the pre-established abomination, desolation. He's explaining to the reader what that's going to look like in the end times, in the final fulfillment of that. You're going to have someone sitting on a throne in the temple, and they're going to claim to be Yahuwah. Yeah, I definitely believe Paul was like a type of prophet. He definitely was. But yeah, so that was a warning in Galatians. We see that's come true. So when you're witnessing to a Mormon, I think the first thing to really, if they have ears to hear, is to show them the message they believe in is not the message that Paul proclaimed, that John proclaimed, that Matthew proclaimed. If you can show them that and they can receive that, they're almost forced to have to come to a crossroads in their belief. They have to be like, okay, well, if this is true, then I have not received the true Messiah, and I need to throw away Mormonism. That's the easiest way, I think, to show them, get to the point of what they believe is another good news. And it's very easy to show them that versus, I would say, a regular evangelical Christian, because it's a lot more subtle with the evangelicals. It's kind of more obvious and more extreme that it's definitely another good news when you look at the Jehovah Witnesses and the Mormons, the Seventh-day Adventists. But then when you look at, like, the devil did a better job deceiving the evangelicals and the Baptists and the Calvinists, and because he mixed a lot more truth in. He made it a lot more mixed rather than those other extreme heretical groups within that religion are very obvious. It's very obvious that it's another good news. And so with the evangelicals, I think it's a lot harder because you have to first show them, like, from the whole scriptures that they're in a false good news. So you actually have to incorporate the whole scriptures, and it might take a little bit longer, showing them that and showing them who the Messiah was supposed to be, that he was supposed to be proclaiming the Torah. And if someone claims to be the Messiah, but they do away with the Torah, that fails the Deuteronomy 13 test. And so to show to a regular evangelical Christian, in my opinion, is a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder, and it takes a little bit more time. Like, you might have to have a couple of conversations with someone one-on-one to find out. But there's definitely a way to go about it. I think with the Catholics, I would probably first tackle on the Mary thing, intercessory thing. That's the first thing I would probably tap. This is just hypothetical witnessing, guys. Just a little commentary here for me. Hypothetical witnessing. Like, I believe you're supposed to go to the person and meet them where they are. Basically, that's all I'm trying to say. Meet them where they are, where they're really having issues with what they believe in, and really tackle the biggest issue first. And, with the Catholics, the biggest issue is the Mary worship and the Trinity. Those are the two biggest things. Obviously, they have a lot of other mystery Babylon aspects of their religion that you have to tackle with, but those are the two biggest things, in my opinion, is the Ishtar disguised as Mary worship, and the Trinity thing. So, but you definitely have to come to each distinctive person at wherever they're at personally, with whatever belief system they have. I think it's a lot easier when you're dealing with just regular non-believers, because you can really just talk to them, as a normal person, and try to come to them from their own point of view. And so that's something who has taught me is know your audience, know who you're talking to. You can't talk to a heathen like you would talk to a Judean. Like if I knew someone that's really from the tribe of Judah that's deceived in Judaism, I have to talk to them differently. I have to strictly go from the Tanakh and prove to them that Yahusha is the Messiah that their ancestors were waiting for. So it all depends. It all depends who you're talking to, if that makes any sense. With a Muslim, you have to prove to a Muslim the problems with the Quran. You have to know the Quran a little bit and be like, okay, so this is the issues I have with the Quran. And you kind of have to do a little bit of homework before witnessing to a Muslim. And another thing with the Muslims is as far as I know, most of them don't believe in the New Testament. So you can't really use the New Testament to witness to them. You have to use the Tanakh.
They do. The only thing is that the version that we use, they don't believe is original. I think some of them will use I think there is something that they use that I don't know what it was. I don't think it's the Episcopal.
It might be Coptic.
No, it's nothing that it's nothing even. It's not Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. It's another epistle that's. Some of them believe that the epistle, it doesn't exist. As far as like, I don't think they use the entire renewed covenant, but they do use one of the Basura accounts. However, I think you have some that believe that the Basura account no longer exists, and then another group that uses I want to say Barnabas, but I really don't think that's it. It's something that is found in the Ante-Nicene Fathers that they believe is original. But they do believe in a Basora account, because I mean they would have to in order to get their understanding of who Yahusha is, because they do believe in Yahusha, just not what we believe about him.
That makes a lot of sense why they've been taught what they've been taught about him. If they believe in some weird heretical church fathers writing that probably, depending on whoever wrote that book or that account, is most likely throwing away the deity of Messiah. Some of them did not believe the deity of Messiah. Some of the church fathers, because some of them were Gnostics in disguise. Some of them did not receive Yahusha as the actual son of Yahuwah, co-creator, pre-existent. Some of them did not believe that. So I could see, yeah, if they're getting it from a weird book, a weird apocryphal church father book, that kind of makes sense why they believe what they believe.
Now, don't quote me on this. Like this is like
Yeah, I
it's
know.
been a while since I've looked on that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely seen Muslims on YouTube claim that they seem to not believe in Paul. So I wonder if they got to be, if they believe in any type of New Testament, it's definitely not a valid New Testament. It would be some type of extra biblical work that probably claims to be the real account and discredits the Brit Hadashah manuscripts we have today. And yeah, so all that, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more difficult talking to a Muslim. I won't even waste my time, going to the Brit Hadashah with them. I would mainly focus on what they believe and how the Quran of itself contradicts itself, and then show them in their own Quran how it says the Quran itself is not a substitution for the Bible. it actually says that it's an addition. So according to their own belief system, the Torah is valid. According to their own belief system, the Tanakh is Yahuwah's word. And they have to accept the Tanakh and the Torah.
Yeah.
Even in their own religion, they have to. So they can't claim that it's, because if you're going to claim it's been corrupted, then what do you do with the Quran saying that it's his word? So you have a problem in that. You have an issue in that. So I would go to them with that and be like, what you've been taught by whoever your leader is in your mosques, it's not teaching you the truth of your own book, not telling you everything that's in your own book. And if the Torah has been corrupted, you can't believe in the Quran then, because the Quran is telling you to go to someone that knows the Torah. So
Exactly.
You can't have it both ways. So that's first how I would, come to them like as respectfully as possible. Be like, listen, what you've been taught in your mosque is not what your book says. Okay, your book says to keep the Sabbath. You're going to mosques on Saturday day, which you could only be keeping a Sabbath for 12 hours if you're doing that. Okay. Your book says for you to go to someone that knows the Torah. The Torah says evening, keep your Sabbaths. Okay. So whoever your leader is misguiding you on that. Number two is if you go to someone that knows the Torah, okay, I know the Torah, I can explain to you what the Torah says about the coming Messiah. And I could show to them from the Torah, from the Tanakh as a whole and the Torah as a whole, that Yahusha was the coming Messiah. And that they, whatever Arabic name they give to the word Messiah, that it's not a new person. According to prophecy, it's not a new person that's supposed to be the Messiah. The Messiah already came. So they have the same issue as Jewish people do, is that you got to kind of come to them from the Tanakh and Torah only and show them, like, listen, what you've been taught is false. He did come already. He actually did come, and he fulfilled these prophecies. And if you can show them that, it's a way to kind of get through to them. But I personally would not use the Brit Hadashah with the Muslims because of that issue. Even if they do believe in some book that is technically some type of a Basora, I doubt they believe in the New Testament that we believe in. I seriously doubt it. Because what they are taught, you cannot get in a Byzantine-based New Testament or a not Coptic, but a I doubt if they have any form of the New Testament they go by, it would be a New Testament that's in our Bibles. I seriously doubt it. Because there's some out there, like I said, that will go on video or on YouTube videos and say they don't believe in Paul's letters. So, or they think Paul is a betrayer.
No, it's just a single Basora account.
Yeah. So that's why I wouldn't use the New Testament, because they've already been brainwashed with that. So I would not even waste my time doing that. I would see first whether they will receive me using only the Tanakh scriptures and see if they can be witnessed to from that aspect, like a Jewish person. I would not, and that's why it's important. And unfortunately, we have not been educated in all of our church upbringings. We were never educated on how to witness from using the Tanakh scriptures, which, by the way, they always did that. The disciples always did that. They did not have a New Testament written down. They did not have New Covenant scriptures written down. What's the one example I'm thinking of in the book of Acts here? Where you have, I think it's Thomas or Philip. Philip witnesses to the eunuch, and he gives him a prophecy from Isaiah, and he doesn't even mention Yahusha yet, but he says, the guy says to him, the Ethiopian eunuch says to him, "Who is this guy?" He read Isaiah to him, and most likely he probably read Isaiah 53 or something. It's like, who is this man? And then that's when Philip, expounded to him that that was Yahusha. And so I think that's kind of how we have to use when, especially going to people that have already a bias against the Brit Hadashah. So anyway, so hopefully that helps someone out there. I know we've been talking about, having a game plan to witness to people and how to witness to people. So hopefully that was for someone out there. But anyway, moving on. I think we got one more chapter in the book of Yahusha.
You want to do 3 to 4 just because I did the 3 and 4 just because I the picture that I had was 1 through 4 because I thought we were going to do 4.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, we're kind of moving very quickly, so I'm not worried about it. Yeah, and 4 only has 24 verses. 3 has only 17 verses. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Let's see here. So I read, my mom read. Sister Milka, are you able to read chapter 3? Is she with us? Still on, or sometimes I don't see if someone's cut off. Okay, maybe she's not able to put her mic on. Yeah, okay, so let's see here. Maybe she's not able to. Brother Yahusha, would you like to read chapter 3?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Alright, chapter 3. Thereupon Yahusha arose early next morning and removed from Shittim, and having come to the Yarden, they halted there some time before they crossed. And after 3 days the officers went through the camp, and gave a charge to the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah our Elohah, and our priests, and Elohim carrying it, you shall remove from your places, and march after it. But let there be a considerable distance between you and it. You shall keep at the distance of about 2,000 cubits. You must not come near it, that you may know the way you are to march, for you have never gone this way before. Then Yahusha said to the people, purify yourselves against tomorrow, for tomorrow Yahuwah will do wonders among you. And when Yahusha said to the Kohanim, take up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah and march before the people, and the Kohanim had taken up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah and were marching before the people, Yahuwah said to Yahusha, this day I begin to exalt you in the sight of all the children of Yashrael, that they may know that as I was with Masha, so I will be with you. Now therefore command the Kohanim who are carrying the ark of the covenant, and say, soon as you are come to a part of the water of Yarden, you shall halt at the Yarden. Then Yahusha said to the sons of Yashrael, draw near and hear the word of Yahuwah, our Elohah. By this you will know that the living Elohah is among you, and that he will surely root out from before you the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Evite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah of the whole earth is about to cross the Yarden. Let me see what verse that is. On 12. Now therefore take you 12 men out of the tribes of Yashrael, out of every tribe a man. And it shall come to pass that when the feet of the Kohanim who are carrying the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah of the whole earth shall rest in the water of the Yarden, the water of the Yarden shall fail, and the water which is coming down shall be stopped. So the people were moved from their tents to cross the Yarden, and the Kohanim carried the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah before the people. And as soon as the Kohanim who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant came to the Yarden, and the feet of the Kohanim who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah were dipped into a part of the water of the Yarden, though the Yarden overflowed all its banks as in the days of wheat harvest, yet the waters coming down from above stopped. They stopped like one solid mass, reaching a great way back, even to a part of Kariath-Jearim, and the water below flowed down into the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, until it was entirely gone and the people stood over against Jericho. Then the Kohanim who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah stood on dry ground, and all the children of Yashrael crossed over on dry ground until all the people had finished crossing the Yarden. Interesting that in verse 4 he says, "You shall keep at the distance of about 2,000 cubits. You must not come near it, that you may know the way you are to march, for you have never heretofore gone this way." Like, they're going this physical way, but he's telling them, like, if you have to be obedient in order to know the way. So he's like, even though they're going a physical way, I see that he's showing them the spiritual way here. Like, if you're not obedient, then Yahusha's not going before you. Like, Yahusha Hamashiach, not Yahusha son of Nun, but like, you're not gonna know the way. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Charge people.
And then I wonder why he has them purifying themselves. For tomorrow Yahuwah will do wonders among you.
Yeah, I think it's because Yahuwah is going to be physically actually among them. Like, we don't see this today, but Yahuwah physically actually coming to be with them in a physical way. Like, when they would go into the temple later on in Solomon's temple, you would have to purify yourselves before going into his presence. We don't really have that today because Yahuwah kind of has a different relationship with us. He's not physically before us in a camp. He's not physically before us in a temple where we can actually see him. It's a different type of presence, like where it's an actual physical type of presence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
they would have to be clean in his presence, even
Yeah.
in a ritual way. Like, if you think about, like, how it says why they had to go outside the camp to relieve themselves, because they can't, their excrement cannot be in Yahuwah's presence. This was like, you know, something in the first covenant we really don't see today. I think we're going to see it again in the millennium, but in the administration we're in right now, we more of have like a spiritual presence of him being in the midst of us rather than exact literal right before you can see him before you presence. Like, we don't even have his splendor even physically shown to us yet. Where they had it in the temple. His splendor would literally go physically into the tabernacle on the ark. We don't have that right now. We're kind of in a administration where he's fully in heaven and he hasn't officially been in physically in the midst of his people since the first covenant. Yahusha was the closest thing to that. He was the closest thing to that. Yahuwah came down in a human form so that he could be amongst his disciples. Really, we don't, since his ascension back to heaven, we haven't seen that. So I think it's something we fully haven't really experienced yet.
What would be the difference between his Ruach being like Yahusha being like whether in Malak Yahuwah, Debar Yahuwah, or in a cloud around them versus his ruach in us, because he is his ruach, so he is in us.
Yeah, I think the difference is when he gives his ruach to us, it's like a portion of his ruach. It's not a fullness of his ruach. He gives just like the 24 elders. You can go into the Tanakh where he said that spirit that's in you, Masha, gives some of it, not all of it, some of it to the elders. So we're kind of like in our situation right now, we're kind of like how the 24 elders were, or how many elders, 70 elders, or they had a portion of Yahuwah himself, his Ruach, but not really the fullness of him. And I would say a Ruach in us is different than being before us in our midst. Um, we don't see him, we don't physically experience him in our presence. We don't, we're not seeing the esteem of Yahuwah descending in the cloud. We're not seeing that with our eyes. We're not seeing he's with us, but I think it's more of a spiritual congregating with us than really a physical congregating with us. Because if he physically, like literally was here, we would see him before us. And I think one of the reasons for that in this ministration is that his people are scattered right now. So it would be kind of pointless for him to do that physically. Like whenever he would congregate with his people physically, like in a physical essence, like you could see him, it was when his people were together in one place, so that all of his people could see him. So I think he's waiting for that to happen until that happens again. So right now we are in a I don't like to use the word dispensation, but it's kind of like we're in an age of his spiritual presence only. We won't have his physical presence again until the millennium, until the second coming, where everyone's going to see him. Like, not just going to be something like you feel him or you feel his conviction. That's all we're experiencing right now, is we're feeling him speak to us and convict us, but we're not seeing him in a physical with our own eyes. Like how Paul says we see through a glass dimly. That's what the context of that is. It's like we know he's with us, we can feel him with us, but you don't see him. He's not physically there. He's not in bodily form. He's not there. You can't really see him. You can't really physically experience him. It's a difference between that and how they were in the wilderness in the first covenant, where he was fully there. They could see him. They could hear him talk audibly. Like I know sometimes some of us, we do hear him audibly, sometimes speak to us, but it's a little bit different than that. It's like you're seeing a personal being sitting on the Ark of the Covenant, like probably a body of light. If I was to think of how he would look and how his esteem looked, it was like a form of light, like an actual embodiment of light, of esteem, filling the temple, filling the whole tabernacle. That we have not experienced. I don't think we will until the millennium is here. I don't think we will. I think he has certain administrations for certain reasons. And I think one of the reasons is his people are not together yet. We're not all physically together. And until that happens, you're not going to really see it back to the days of the tabernacle and the temple until all of his people are together in the millennium, where it's gonna kind of be like the Beatitudes, where he's sitting on the grass talking to them, teaching them. That's what's gonna happen in the millennium. Yahusha is gonna be physically in front of us. We're gonna see him. We're gonna experience him physically. He's gonna be teaching us his Torah. He's gonna be like, listen, I know you guys were trying, but y'all missed the mark on certain areas here, and let me show you where you missed the mark. Okay, and I don't blame you guys, because man has kind of corrupted these translations of a translation of a translation. I get it. Okay, now you're going to get it, the word from the source. Okay, now you're going to get my commands from the source, and so Anyway, but you know, so and that's a whole other thing that ties back into the whole witnessing thing with the Muslims is I can easily get past that when they try to say, oh well, we don't believe in the Bible because it's been corrupted. And, you know, I always have the counter argument. If you have a book that hasn't been corrupted by the devil, maybe it's because he doesn't care to corrupt it. Maybe because there's a reason he doesn't care to corrupt it. And he doesn't care to, you know, to even bother with it, that it's already leaven of itself. So I've heard that from people in Islam so many times. So many times they say to me, "Oh, well, the Bible's been corrupted," and you know, I'm not gonna give them a white lie and say, "Oh no, it hasn't been corrupted." I know that the Bible has been corrupted. What they don't understand is the Bible, like I say so many times, the Bible is not his original word in heaven. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So your argument is that a 10/20th time translation has been messed with a little bit. Yeah, no duh. But it's still his word. It's still a copy of his word that's in heaven. The Quran is not a copy of his word. The Quran is not even his word whatsoever, or even a copy of it. So those that try to say that don't realize it's a straw man argument to say that oh well, the Bible's been messed with. Yeah, but at least I know the original source of the Bible. At least I know that the Bible, the original source is Yahuwah's pure word that came from his mouth. What is the origin of the Quran? Some random guy named Muhammad was given a revelation from an angel, supposedly from an angel. So anyway, but that's one of the arguments I usually use is that you can prove that the origin of the Bible is true. You can prove that it's truth, that it's his word. Matter of fact, all you have to do is go to the, I don't know if they still have it, but I know it was preserved at a certain point, the original tablets of the Ten Commandments. You could probably prove that archaeologically, okay? And they're told that supposedly that the Quran was written by Allah, which is actually a lie. It wasn't. It was written by Muhammad. It was not physically written by the creator. We know for a fact, though, historically, we know for a fact the tablets of stone were written by Yahuwah. We know for a fact with his own finger. Okay. So when you actually compare the two belief systems, the Bible is head and shoulders above the Quran. Because it actually contains contents that Yahuwah wrote with his finger in it. That's just one of the examples I would give to a Muslim to show that the Bible is his true word, and all that. So, and the fact that even though the Bible has been messed with, his law has never changed. That's another thing I would bring up to them. His law has never changed. I don't care what translation you give me, for the most part, all of them are going to say the same thing when it comes to his law, his commandments. For the most part, the 10 Commandments have been preserved in almost every translation, unless you have like a weird Catholic Bible. But you know, most of the law that Yahuwah gave from Sinai has been preserved, even in these copies, you know, of his original word. That these modern day copies we have still have his law preserved, and ultimately his law is what we're to live by. So the argument that, oh, the Bible's been messed with, okay, but as long as Yahuwah has preserved enough of his word for us to live by, I'm not going to be afraid just because man has tried to change his word. You know. So anyway. But so I just wanted to see if there was anything else I noticed was interesting. Priest took the Ark of the Covenant up. before we do the last chapter of today. So now what's interesting, it says here, Yahuwah said to Yahusha, this day I begin to exalt you before all the children of Yashral, that they may know that as I was with Masha, I will also be with you. Okay, so now this is interesting here. It says, hearken to the word of Yahuwah or Alua. Interesting. In Yahusha 3 verse 9 there. You shall know that the living Alua is among you, to utterly destroy from before our face the Canaanite, Hittite, Perizzite, Hivite, Amorite, Girgashite, and Jebusite. So we're supposed to choose 12, looks like 12 leaders of the 12 tribes here. These are priests bear the Ark of the Covenant. Okay. And I think what I'll do here is I'll do chapter 4 for us here so that we can finish up this study here. See here, so chapter 4, book of Yahusha. And when the people had completely passed over the Jordan, Yahuwah spoke to Yahusha, saying, take men from the people, one of each tribe, and charge them, and you shall take out of the midst of the Jordan 12 fit stones, and have carried them across together with yourselves, place them in your camp, where you shall encamp for the night. So 12 stones. And Yahusha, having called the 12 men of distinction from among the children of Yashrael, one of each tribe, said, advance before me in the presence of Yahuwah in the midst of the Jordan, and each having taken up a stone from there, let him carry it on his shoulders, according to the number of the 12 tribes of Yashrael. And these may be to you continually for appointed sign, that when your son asks you in future, saying, what are these stones to us? That you may explain to your son, saying, the river Jordan was dried up from before the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah of the whole earth, when it passed, and these stones shall be for a memorial for you to the children of Yashrael forever. You know, it's kind of interesting. It's almost like the Red Sea crossing here. He dried up the Jordan. And the children of Yashrael did so as Yahuwah commanded Yahusha, and they took up the 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan as Yahuwah commanded Yahusha. When the children of Yashrael had completely passed over and carried these stones with them in the camp and laid them down there. And Yahusha set also other 12 stones in the Jordan itself, in the place that was under the feet of the priests that bore the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah, and there they are to this day. And the priests that bore the Ark of the Covenant stood in the Jordan until Yahusha had finished all that Yahuwah commanded him to report to the people. And the people hasted and passed over. And it came to pass, when all the people had passed over, that the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah passed over in the stones before them. And the sons of Reuben, sons of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the children of Yashrael, as Masha commanded them. 40,000 armed for battle went over before Yahuwah to war to the city of Jericho. In that day, Yahuwah magnified Yahusha before all the people of Yashrael, and they feared him as Masha, as long as he lived. And Yahuwah spoke to Yahusha, saying, charge the priests that bear the Ark of the Covenant of the testimony or witness of Yahuwah to go up out of Jordan, And Yahusha charged the priests, saying, "Go up out of Jordan." It came to pass when the priests who bore the ark of Yahuwah were gone out of the Jordan, set their feet upon the land, the water of the Jordan returned impetuously to its place, and went as before over all its banks. And the people went out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. Interesting. So this would have been the 10th of Abib. And the children of Yashua encamped in Galgala in the region eastward from Jericho. And Yahusha set these stones, which he took out of the Jordan in Galgala, saying, when your sons ask you, saying, what are these stones? Tell your sons that Yashua went over the Jordan on dry land. When Yahuwah Aralua had dried up the water of Jordan from before them until they had passed over, as Yahuwah Aralua did to the Red Sea, which Yahuwah our Alua dried up from before us until we passed over, that all the nations of the earth might know that the power of Yahuwah is mighty, and that you might worship Yahuwah our Alua in every work. Interesting, in every work. So just like we were talking about last night, that's possibly where Paul got the whole Shaul got the whole concept of everything you do to Yahuwah. So very interesting. But that's pretty much the end of today's study. So hopefully, I know we talked about a lot of things. Hopefully you guys got something out of the readings that we were actually doing. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it. So if you guys, all new viewers and listeners, if you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Click on the notifications bell if you want to be notified for future studies. And and I think that's pretty much it. Also, any brothers and sisters out there that maybe came across this YouTube page, if you are looking for fellowship, please let us know. Please reach out to us. There's multiple ways you can do that. I believe I have my email listed. If not, I'm going to have to start doing that. But email me. You can find me on Facebook, minds.com, MeWe, trying to think of other platforms. Rumble, if any of our brothers and sisters are on Rumble, feel free to reach out to me on there. I still have Facebook for the time being, still have, Facebook there. So feel free to reach out to the ministry there as well. And have a great rest of your Shabbat, all our brothers and sisters out there. Shabbat Shalom. Yahuwah willing, see you next time.